Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fantasy NBA Today, a sports ethos presentation brought to you by our great partners at FanDuel. My name is Aaron Bruski, and I'm rolling solo for this show. We are getting to tonight's action portion of the proceedings here today. And as usual, we'll start the show with our top streamers of the night. We will then look at what to watch for, and then we will get into our rotating topic as well as just getting you ready for tonight in general. So if you are new to the show and you want to make sure you get locked into all the great content here at Sports Ethos, head on over to youtube.com/Sports Ethos, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, make sure that all of our stuff pops up in your algorithm. We got all sorts of content these days. I think yesterday we released like 10 pieces of content for you guys, a lot on the free side, a lot for our subscribers. One way or another, we got you covered on all of your fantasy basketball needs. We're going to jump right into it. We got six top six streamers of the night. We're going to kick it off here with none other than Robert Williams of the Portland Trailblazers. We're going to watch and see if he has any Donovan Clingan action next to him tonight, but he's been getting a lot of steals and blocks. We're going to make sure that if he's active here in this it's a back-to-back game tonight, that if you do need those steals and blocks, that you're going to be getting Robert Williams somehow into your lineup if you're streaming. After that, I have Anthony Simons for you guys. And why Anthony Simons? Well, because he's sucked all season long. That's a terrible way to break down a streamer. But the bottom line with this, and he was talking with the media today, I think that's a little bit of an interesting marker there. I think they might sense in Boston that they're in need of some Anthony Simons production. But, you know, it's hard to come across a streamer that's capable of dropping 20 points in a given night. Both he and Josh Minot actually on a very, very slow night for streamers. I think both of these guys have potential to get going after really not doing anything for the last couple of weeks. You got to take a little bit of this with a grain of salt. If you're going to put either of these guys in your lineup, you do know that there's a little bit of a lottery ticket factor going on here. But, it's just not likely that these guys are this unproductive. And in the case of Minot especially, he's really had a hard time with the opposition being super big the last three games and had a bit of a noisy line prior to that in the game that Nemish Keita went out the other day. So he's just sitting there waiting, percolating. And we want to see if we can get lucky, not so much with Simons, but if Minot can have a big game and you can happen to have him in your lineup, you might get the lottery ticket thing going where he has a second good game and then he has a third good game. And next thing you know, they want to play Josh Minot the rest of the season in Boston. I can't tell you that they're going to do that, but at some point in time, his stat set's good enough to be a great fantasy value. So we'll keep an eye out on that. We got Cam Spencer and Memphis being super eclectic, and they're actually going to take on San Antonio. And I will mention those guys here in a little bit, but Cam Spencer's had about a top 175 value in the last month or so. It's been very hit or miss, again, on a slow night for streamers. We're looking at guys like Spencer. We're looking at guys like Jalen Wells. We're looking at guys like Vince Williams, varying levels of production. I don't know if people have hopped all the way off of the Vince Williams train yet. He gets great assists right now. Everything else is a question mark. Spencer's actually been a little bit more productive than him. So we'll see if either of those three guys, and I'd have them all ranked pretty evenly. You get a little bit of options here if you're going to be digging in the dumpster bin for your streamer action tonight. But I like all of them. And hell, you might even have Cedric Coward pop up in one of your leagues as he's at about a top 200 run for over a month. Cedric Coward would be my top streamer if he somehow pops up and is available in your league. After that, it gets worse here, folks. It gets worse. My fifth streamer of the night for you guys is none other than Sandro Mamukelashvili. Yeah, Sandro Mamukelashvili is making noise at about a top 175 level, top 200 sometimes. I actually really like the player, and he's actually doing some pretty cool things for Toronto. They like him there. He produces across the stat set. It's just not consistent enough, and there's not enough volume. Name the stat category, and it's pretty much true. He needs to get probably 28 minutes per game to have a late round value in standard fantasy leagues. depending on your format, depending on your needs, maybe he profiles a little bit better, but he's actually been somewhat consistent lately in those deeper leagues that he could be productive in. So Sandro Mamukalashvili, I think I'm getting better at that. I think I'm getting there. And my last streamers of the night for our top 6 streamers are going to be the San Antonio guys. We're going to meld them into one. But what I will tell you here about these guys is that right now, Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagnie are coming off of bad games. Keldon Johnson is coming off of a good game. I really think it's just, you kind of throw logic and reason out the window with some of this stuff and the hardcore X's and O's, and you just go, who was good yesterday? Okay, they're not going to be good twice. Who was bad yesterday? They're not going to be bad twice. They just share the ball too much in San Antonio to know on a given night who's going to have the good stats, and these things tend to balance out over time. So if I had to rank them, I would go Harrison Barnes, because I don't think he's had a noisy line in a while, then Champagnie, then Keldon Johnson. And if you wanted to throw Luke Cornett in there somewhere, I would probably rank him 4th. And he's been producing at the bottom of about the top 200 lately as well. So not too much excitement on the streamer wire, but you might also, there's maybe some better names out here, like Miles McBride is kind of on this list every single night. He's playing in Boston. Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe were really quiet. I am a little concerned that AJ Mitchell has sort of stolen their thunder, excuse the pun there, but they've been quiet, and these guys are not going to be quiet the entire season. So Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe, I like Wiggins over Joe for whatever it's worth in Golden State. And with Golden State having Steph Curry out, I think, yes, it does open it up for guys like Brandon Pajemski, and Moses Moody is probably somebody that's a must-roster player in most 12-team standard formats, but could be available. So he's in the streamer discussion, I guess. Buddy Hield gets brought into this discussion. And I'm pretty sure Jimmy Butler is going to play, but if it's a home game and you're going to treat it as a schedule loss, that's probably the part that I don't like about them punting this game. Is it is a home game. It is a national TV game against Oklahoma City. But if you think you're not going to win and you want to rest all your old dudes, I think you could do it. I don't think they'll do it here. The other thing about Pajemski and Hield and Moses Moody is that they really have a hard matchup tonight. Oklahoma City regularly destroys box scores. If you want to say, well, Isaiah Hartenstein's not there, so maybe they're a little thin up front. Don't think it matters against this Golden State team. It's not like they play big or anything like that. They are at risk of having a really bad box score. So while the opportunity is there, Oklahoma City could shut them down. So just keep that in mind when you're weighing out your options. I also like Jose Alvarado as sort of a random streamer play. Just got back off the injury report, coming off some big lines. I doubt Derek Queen's available. We're going to talk about him later in the show. But Jeremiah Fears is also worth a look. And I believe that empties the clip. Well, unless you want to go deep on the Washington, Philadelphia guys, and we're going to actually do that in the next segment. You got Adem Bona, Dominic Barlow, Bilal Coulibaly, Tristan Vukcevic, Justin Champagnie, Jared McCain even, all to be discussed here in the next segment. And before we do that, let's quickly hit up some news. We got Chris Middleton. He is listed out for Tuesday. That's not as concerning, though, as the Keyshawn George toe injury. He's listed as questionable. Hopefully we get some background on that. A little quiet for Keyshawn lately, so who knows? Maybe that's a contributing factor, but he's still cruising at a top 50/80 level in 8 and 9 cat leagues, respectively. We got Jordan Hawkins available with an illness, so not much going on there. But we do see Yves Missi downgraded to questionable with a foot and an ankle issue. He's seen an increase in playing time, followed by a dud in the last one. Maybe the foot and ankle issue happened in the last one. Who knows? As mentioned on the show earlier today, Trey Murphy is available. That's great news. Zion downgraded to questionable with an adductor injury. That is classic Zion. Nemish Keita available. So that's good news there. Derek White available. That wasn't too surprising. Quentin Grimes downgraded to questionable, as mentioned on the last show. Paul George and Andre Drummond participating in shoot around. Probable. Okay. Expected to play Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. So that answers that question right there. And then Donovan Clingan, we don't have an update. He's been dealing with an illness, and he's been great this season. And again, if he doesn't go kind of think these two things operate independently of one another. Robert Williams, I'm pretty concerned about his status for tonight, but if he's going to give it a go, he's been getting about 2.5 combined steals and blocks per game. He's played in 9 of the last 11 games, I believe. So he's actually been on the floor, Robert Williams, and getting you numbers. So quickly, if you're adding or doing a transaction, if you want to quickly pause the show and just head on over to, again, youtube.com/sportsethos, hit the like button, and that'll make sure that we're popping up in your feed, as we have a ton of content going on over at YouTube, and you guys are going to want that stuff popping up in your feed, or even giving you a little email that says that we're going live. So let's check out what we're going to be watching for tonight. It's a 6-game slate. We're going to talk Washington and Philadelphia here to kick it off. So Philadelphia with the Andre Drummond participating in shoot-around a bit. This could be Drummond feels better. He's going to play more than 6 minutes tonight. It could also be what I was putting on the tinfoil hat to just kind of guess at here is maybe they're doing the rehab on the fly for Andre Drummond. Maybe they figure that getting 5 to 10 minutes of him in the basketball game, or 10 to 15 minutes of him in the basketball game, is an equivalent level of training and return to play protocol that it's more valuable for the team, as well as it's good enough to get him the win that he needs on the floor. And maybe this is just how they're going to approach things. We'll find out here tonight. Tonight will give us a lot of info on how this injury is going to go, because it'll be our second exposure to their strategy since he hyperextended, or whatever the official injury was, and looked bad, then didn't, and then he was playing the next day. So it's a lot of different things right now. Why is it important? Well, Joel Embiid's not playing in this game, and that leaves Adem Bona as possibly the top streaming option, depending on how aggressive you want to get there. What we need to see out of Adem Bona is consistency. He is returning in his 2 games since returning. He is returning late round value during that span. It's heavily dependent upon blocks. So if blocks aren't your thing, you're probably out of the conversation here. But mostly what I've been advising all season long, or at least in the, say, 5 to 10 games since the start of the season, is get Andre Drummond, have Adem Bona, block off the Philadelphia front court for yourself, and then just deal with these issues as they come along. If Andre Drummond is toast for any reason, and I'm going to answer that question here in a second, but if Andre Drummond's toast and it's going to be a Adem Bona season, he's going to have mid-round potential easy. And we saw periods of time last season where he had early round production. So that's why the hype and the excitement is there for Adem Bona. As for Drummond, he has been a great producer. He's had a top 75 kind of a season. He came into the season in shape. The minute load was a concern, as he's been getting 30 minutes in games, but overall looking great. There was a big article, I think it's a Philly News. I think the writer's last name is Aronson. It's like Adam Aronson or something, talking about how Andre Drummond did toe yoga through the off season. He really took his toe rehab seriously. All I know is at about the 3 or 4 game mark for Andre Drummond, I'm asking myself, well, where was this Andre Drummond 5 years ago? Well, he's moving quickly. He can cover certain things, and he's shooting the 3 and really just playing smart basketball out there. Maybe it was the end of his career showing up and him saying, okay, I got to do this right for the last time, before I become unable to play anymore. I want to play good basketball. He's really, really been playing well. So if he's hurt, that would lead me to potentially consider a drop, possibly, depending on how long he was hurt. But overall, he's not going to be dropped. It's just a question, is he going to be as effective as he has been for the last X amount of time on the floor before the injury? So we'll have to see how that goes. If he's a little bit slower, if he's got that injury risk, it probably takes him from top 75 down to the top 100 and lower. And then you got to start weighing your options more seriously. When he's a top 75 projected producer, you just kind of wait and see whenever he's going to return and he gets back, and then he's your guy. Let's see here. Quick message in the chat. Don't see what that is. I'm going to have to slide that up. Gotcha. FanDuel stuff. I love it. I love me some FanDuel lines. We'll talk about those here in a quick second. Let's figure out Washington real quick. So Keyshawn George, if he misses this game, that's going to be huge. It's going to open things up for the entire rotation. In the meantime, what we're seeing are some injury issues for Alexander Sarr. Now, Coach Brian Keefe said that this was kind of a minor injury, this most recent calf injury for Sarr. So a lot of concern about those in today's NBA, a lot of concerns for those with him in particular. So Alex Sarr is a little bit of a question mark. And in the meantime, Tristan Vukcevic is, at least after the last game, part of an answer there in Washington. Now, I'm always watching in Washington for when are they going to make the pivot? When are they going to pivot away from Chris Middleton and hopefully find a home for CJ McCollum? Now, McCollum's done his part, and he's had a couple big games to remind the rest of the league. That's frankly all he needs to do. I think he doesn't need to do anything else at this point. He could probably be sat, and on the basis of some of these big games, teams can come in. They know what they're going to get with CJ McCollum and make the trade, and Washington can move on into their tank. And I think they should do that sooner rather than later. I don't think that CJ McCollum with the leadership is giving them all this stuff that they couldn't have. If he's gone, he's a leader, yes, but like you need your young guys to play. You're trying to tank, and you want to get guys on the floor. And the two guys that we're always watching for are Vukcevic and Justin Champagnie, not at the same position, but a larger pivot indicating that those guys are going to now play would be a development in fantasy leagues and something we would want to watch out for very closely. Bilal Coulibaly is rostered in a lot of spots. If Keyshawn George doesn't play, you might get the mini breakout for Bilal Coulibaly. I want to tap the brakes a little bit on that. I think he's got some offensive issues this season that's keeping him from having the pop that he was having the year before. When we saw Bilal jump into last season, he had a bright green light to shoot, super aggressive. Right now, his points are single digits. He's not getting a ton of shots per game. The steals, the blocks, and the threes are okay, and they're there, and that's the attraction for the most part. But if Keyshawn George is out and Bilal Coulibaly finally gets the ball in his hands and can do something with it, that would therefore be fun. So that's probably my favorite game to watch tonight. The money line and the Wizards plus 13.5 in this game, that's actually quite juicy. Now, Washington has been bad all season long. They're coming off of a good game. Philadelphia is really struggling, and their hot start has faded. And these issues at the center position are really, really pronounced. They don't yet know how to play Adembona. Like they're playing him in a context of like a 4-guard lineup that they haven't figured out yet. And he has to set screens all over the place. And he's just not good at that right now. And I just am curious even if Andre Drummond plays, is this a basketball team that can run the Wizards out of the building at that level? And maybe they're hungry. The Quentin Grimes injury looms large here. VJ Edgecombe could get loose in a game like this. Tyrese Maxey could get loose in a game like this. They do need a big win in Philadelphia, but that center position, until they get a role for Adembona, and literally a role, like if these screens can be set closer to the 3-point line and he can get little small pocket passes and actually function inside of the system of the offense, I think you'll get less 4-out, 5-out style play, which results in a lot of guards doing guard stuff, but no balance to speak of. That's why Andre Drummond has been so good for them, is the balance that he's brought to the floor, because he can catch the ball in the paint and he can make moves there. So a little bit of a breakdown on Washington, Philly. We move on. The other game that I am watching for tonight is the New Orleans Pelicans at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are, in a Derek Queen game, we want to watch Derek Queen and see if he can be good. He gets a really tough matchup against Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid. And it's kind of got me thinking, especially with Yves Missi questionable and dinged up. Are we going to see a Derek Queen game? Can you get a buy low offer in for Derek Queen, before tonight's game? And can it pan out right away? And I think Derek Queen can really give Rudy Gobert some issues. I think if Derek Queen's given the ball on the perimeter and he can kind of either take a quick little like 16, 18-foot jumper, he's something he's kind of comfortable with, or get Rudy Gobert backpedaling and moving side to side, I think that can generate some 2-on-1 stuff going on, and Derek Queen could be successful with that. And Naz Reid, I think, can actually probably shut Derek Queen down, unless Derek Queen is super aggressive and starts putting his shoulder into Naz Reid's chest he actually has the size and strength advantage, Derek Queen, against Naz Reid. So I wonder, is he going to be able to handle all of that and have a big game at home? And I'm probably 50-50 on this one. Minnesota playing sort of well, kind of well, pretty well, and could easily overlook the New Orleans Pelicans at home, could easily overlook Derek Queen. And Derek Queen's just one of these players in fantasy where the valuation for Queen is anywhere between he's a top 50 guy the rest of the way to he is a drop candidate. I doubt many intermediate or expert players are considering dropping Derek Queen, but that's the range of opinions and outcomes. And of course, you got the national stuff and then the trade stuff with the Atlanta Hawks that spices up the discussion. And then Derek Queen does his own part by having incredible offensive play. And then on defense, he might just kind of not care one night. And it puts a bullseye on him. And he'll talk trash. And he'll steal the ball with 3 seconds left and do it in a position where nobody does that. Let's get to our next segment, shall we? Let's get to buy or pass. So this segment, what we do is we look at players who are kind of in this realm of a discussion. They've got rankings that are a little bit lower than they're accustomed to. We'll measure the last 2 weeks of their ranks for 8 cat leagues. And then we will decide, are we buying or are we passing? So let's kick it off. LaMelo Ball, he's ranked number 93 over the last 2 weeks. Really interesting stuff. Covered it in detail on yesterday's show. So I can summarize it here in buy or pass. LaMelo Ball's played a lot of minutes lately. He's played in he's played 75 minutes in 3 games. And he played in back-to-back games the other day. His minute totals are a little bit lower. He's in like the 25 to 29 range since returning from his last injury. And I think the issue is that they played him really big minutes to start the season. He had like 5 games in 7 days. I want to say he played about 150 minutes in those games. So he was like up and over 30 to start the season. Then the injuries with his ankles start popping up. He misses time, and we're doing the whole LaMelo Ball dance. And at the same time, he's been shooting like crap. So it's like all of the bad things at once for LaMelo Ball. So again, nobody's surprised, but are we buying in on LaMelo Ball? You know, with the question really being, what do you think you could get LaMelo Ball for that would be worth it, that wouldn't scare the living daylights out of you? I kind of think 5th round is a good spot to kind of aim for LaMelo Ball. You lose a 5th rounder, it's just, you know, it's not even taking a leg out from your chair. Or maybe it takes 1 leg out from your chair, but you might be adding 3 more. If LaMelo Ball, if this ramp up that we're seeing, if this is actually a makes sense kind of a ramp up, they should have probably done this to start the year with him. I would actually prefer, if he could get the shooting figured out, that LaMelo Ball play 28 minutes per game. And in those 28 minutes, he can just go crazy and everybody can know it's LaMelo Ball's going to do whatever he wants out there. And then maybe in the 4th quarter or something, they give the ball to somebody else. Probably not going to happen. But LaMelo Ball, I would probably target with a 5th rounder and see if you can get a little bit lucky on what would be 1st or 2nd round potential if he stays healthy and he plays, you know, the majority of his games. LaMelo Ball, pretty good fantasy player. Let's spin this over to Joel Embiid, who is injured in tonight's game. He's ranked 197 in the 1 game he has played over the last 2 weeks. He's basically, I can sum it up, he's dead to me. And I think I don't think there's a reason to buy here. I think what we're going to find out is that Joel Embiid is probably cooked and that there's not a future for him in Philadelphia, and that it's going to be frustrating when he's on the basketball floor for everybody involved, whether it's his teammates on the offensive side and certainly on the defensive side, where he gets targeted every single play he's out there, with the exception of a handful that don't really matter here. So the word is out. You run on Joel Embiid, you run at Joel Embiid. And I think for those reasons, the juice won't be worth the squeeze for anybody involved. And they'll just find a way to get Joel Embiid out of the lineup and rotation every time they can get a chance. And from a fantasy perspective, that just isn't going to work. So I think that's enough on Joel Embiid. Let's get to Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine producing in the 170 range and really, really struggling for Sacramento. This is one of those situations where I don't think Zach LaVine is ready to let go of the rope. And I don't even think it's fair to ask him to let go of the rope. He's still a highly paid fairly productive NBA player who can shoot the ball. He can kind of function within the context of a successful offense. So there's something there for there to be a reason to talk about Zach LaVine. Like, we're a quarter of the way through the season for Sacramento. Like, what's Zach LaVine going to do? He's going to tuck tail and run and hide in a hole, for 3/4 of a season. I think nobody wants Zach LaVine in the NBA. Nobody wants to trade for Zach LaVine. So he's stuck there. He's got fans yelling at him and those fans going viral and people siding with the fans. So he's going to come out, I think, and play very, very hard in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, where would I buy Zach LaVine? I probably cap it at something like 75 in an 8-cat league, maybe like 80 or 90 even. I don't know if you're going to get Zach LaVine for that, but it's pretty close. I think whoever has rostered Zach LaVine has some level of buyer's remorse, even though you had to know this was coming for Zach LaVine in Sacramento. There's just not an outcome here where I think Zach LaVine, just stops trying, stops playing. Like, I think even if he gets hurt, he will want to come back and play unless it's a multi-week, multi-month injury as we get into like February, March, or April. That's where I would be concerned about Zach LaVine. But there's just a possibility that he's set it and forget it. He goes out there, especially they get rid of DeMar DeRozan, maybe even Domantas Sabonis, and then he's really out there with a free ramp to chuck. And at that level, he's a top 40 player. So there is top 40 potential here for Zach LaVine. I like him at 75 through 90 as a bet for the rest of the season. So maybe you get that top 40 upside. The next player on the list is Asar Thompson. Asar Thompson, I watched a lot of last night when I watched the Dennis Jenkins film. He's been producing in the 165 range seemingly all season long, 164 over the last 2 weeks. My read on Asar Thompson is that he didn't improve this offseason. Like, he didn't develop better handles. He didn't develop a better shot. He didn't, get stronger and faster in the way that maybe we thought he could. I thought he was going to be one of the most impressive physical specimens in the NBA, and he's up there. He really is. But for his lack of foul shooting, his lack of shooting in general, everything else really needs to come together for him. And watching him play last night, he had probably 5 mental mistakes that a player with his experience shouldn't have had. And it makes me wonder if they are a little frustrated with Asar Thompson in Detroit. He's gotten less minutes than I think a breakout would suggest. That if he was having a breakout season, he'd have probably 30 minutes per game at least. They're in a tight rotation right now. They don't need Asar Thompson on the ball, especially with Dennis Jenkins. They've got a lot of players that can do things there. So I'm not buying into Asar Thompson. I'm not buying into a buy low situation. I mean, if you want to see if you can get Asar Thompson for a late round guy, sure. But I don't think anybody's going to give up on the what if potential for Asar Thompson for a late round guy. I think they'd rather just fish on the waiver wire and see if they can get this kind of bounce back that, frankly, until I see a skill that he brings to the table that's different than last season, I just can't get behind it. I'll just eat my loss on was something of like a top 60 rank for Asar Thompson. I'm just going to eat it. And we're just going to move on. I'm not going to chase this. Seeing what I need to see, and we're going to move on. Rudy Gobert checks in at 150. I'm not a Rudy Gobert guy. Is he going to produce at 150 the rest of the way? He probably produce at about 100 to 125. I don't think there's a whole lot of room to buy low here. I also don't think I would be dropping Rudy Gobert anytime soon. His role is in place. He is what he is. He does what he does, and we move on. Brandon Ingram, a little bit of a slide. He's producing in the 125 range. I think this is going to happen with streaky kind of shooters that, have a couple bad games in a small sample size. If anybody's buying into Brandon Ingram not being a top 50 guy for the Toronto Raptors this season, I think you just step right up there and help them out with that. But I don't think anybody's going to be giving you a discount on Brandon Ingram. I think if you want to try to make a play at Brandon Ingram, do the old proverbial top 75 player, toss them in there, see if they bite. And what you'll get in return, I think, is top 75 at minimum and with a top 50 potential. And this is kind of Brandon Ingram's team in a weird way. Like Scotty Barnes is a different skill set. Brandon Ingram has his. They look for Ingram when they need offense. They look for Scotty when they need versatility, and it's working. And Emmanuel quickly when they need speed and pick and roll. Hell, it may even make an RJ Barrett work for the most part. And RJ Barrett largely rumored to be on his way out in a trade deadline deal, and you would have to worry a little bit about what comes back. But I kind of just like what the Raptors have right now. They're a very clear-cut fantasy team, and there's something about stability that you like here that even if the margins aren't great, you toss a top 75 player, try to get Brandon Ingram, and feel fairly good about it. But again, I don't think anybody's going to give up Brandon Ingram right now for a top 75 guy. So we move on. Darius Garland checking in at 120. I do think there's some buy low potential here for Darius Garland. This Cavs team is not exactly deep this season. I think they do need the production. I do think there is risk that Donovan Mitchell does too much throughout the season. And so therefore you do want Darius Garland out there doing stuff. He's got top 35 potential if it's all going well. Right now he's in the midst of his return to play campaign. And so the optics are bad. The production's bad. It's all bad right now for Darius Garland. And that's your opportunity to get in there, buy low. I think you could probably have Darius Garland for a top 75 player right now, maybe a top 60 player. That's good math. And yeah, there's a little bit of injury risk there, but if your team needs some pop right now, if your team doesn't have the pop that you like, that's the kind of move you make. And hell, try a top 80 player, try a top 85 player. See if you can get Darius Garland on the cheap, because you're not going to get another opportunity like this as the season goes on. Brandon Miller checks in here at number 90. Brandon Miller is coming off the shoulder injury. He's out actually for a game here, which is all good and fine. I think Brandon Miller is going to be a top 40 producer as long as he stays healthy. That's a pretty big if there. There's some questions about whether he can actually do that in a season. A lot of this injury stuff is pretty random. He keeps getting bit though. But I think in general, you can count on Brandon Miller's production. Therefore, it does make him a buy low guy. And I wouldn't be trying to move off of Brandon Miller at all. Not a lot of fantasy producers in Charlotte. Also, the guys that do get a lot of heavy minutes, they practically don't touch the ball at all. So Brandon Miller in a catbird seat if anything happens to LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, down Miles Bridges. If one of those guys goes down, you're going to get Max Brandon Miller. Max Brandon Miller has top 25 potential, and the math is great here. I think you could probably get Brandon Miller for a top 75 guy, which is pretty much all you probably need to know about sell high and buy low deals. 75 usually gets the job done. Kevin Durant shows up here at number 64. I'm fine with KD, and I don't know what the personal issue was there that cost him 2 games. Whatever this dip is could easily be attributable to that, or it could just be the ebbs and flows of a season playing with Alperen Şengün. Kevin Durant has a solid stat set, and I do think that this team is going to eventually try to rebalance a little bit of less Şengün, a little bit more KD. I can't say that for sure, but all I know is in the playoffs, what I want is to know that Kevin Durant is at his peak, because you kind of know what you're going to get out of Alpi. And also, by the way, in the playoffs, when they tuck those whistles away, a lot of the stuff that Alpi does isn't going to work in the playoffs. It'll work, but it's not going to work at the same clip. And playing off of Alpi also has other issues in which Alpi gets all of the accolades and other players do not. And he's getting covered for on defense by a lot of those guys. And that stuff kind of tends to rip at a team's seams, i.e. Sacramento, with one of the guys he gets often compared to. But KD's got a top 20 stat set, and this is a little bit of a buy low area, but I don't think you get too much value on a buy low deal because he's Kevin Durant. Everybody knows this stuff. The last guy on this list is Jalen Williams, a mid-round start for J-Dub. It's all good. I think if you can get J-Dub at a discount right now, congrats. I don't think you're going to do it. I think his GMs are just thrilled to have him back in the lineup, and they want to see what they're going to get out of their shiny new toy. If you can toss a top 30 offer to get Jalen Williams, I think you do it. But I, again, don't think they're even going to answer your email. And that is going to do it for Buy or Pass, the segment taking over the world. So, guys, if you like what you're seeing here, head on over to sportsethos.com. Check out our free app. It has all of our news updates. It's got a lot of stats, a lot of tools. It's got all the different sports in there. You go to either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Just type in Sports Ethos, hit the buttons, and you will be dialed in. Also, go to the website, check out a membership. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you, Andre, for producing another winner. Doc, I hope you're having fun out there. Thanks to our content team, Mike Passador, Keston Paul, Mark Camaro, Tim Woodson, and William Harris, who the last two handle the box score breakdown, so you can check them out tonight after the show. I believe it'll be Tim Woodson on the call. And for Steve and Andre and all of us here at Sports Ethos, enjoy your Tuesday night. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, presented by FanDuel.